Hello again, everybody. This is James Bartley, and you're watching a live stream for my show. I thought it would be a good time to do a live stream to reconnect with everybody and to talk about certain key issues. We're seeing this yo yo of a disclosure effort going up and down and sideways. Excuse me. And it's a good time to bring into sharp focus some key issues that need to be emphasized and re-emphasized. As many of you know, I'm deeply into the reptilian overlordship scheme of things, and this has actually come up in the recent past with the Epstein files, or at least part of them. Apparently, there's like a huge tranche of documents that are still yet to be received, and so much of it has been redacted too. So, but my takeaway, besides all the blatant references to cannibalism and other things, is the fact that this so-called Epstein ruling class is distinctly different from us as a species. And we always hear these surface level types banging on about, oh, well, UFOs, aliens, that's a distraction. Let's hear about the Epstein files, right? And then when you have Juliet Bryant rock up and say, well, wait a minute, I was in the ranch in New Mexico and I saw Jeffrey Epstein shapeshift into a reptilian. Now, to me, that's significant, but to a lot of the surface level types, it's, they don't even want to go there. Kudos to people like Owen Schroyer and others that have allowed Juliet to have a say on their podcast. But the fact that Juliet Bryant brings that up brings into sharp focus what it is we're dealing with. All right. Because Jeffrey Epstein is not a mere Mossad agent. He's not a mere CIA agent. That's way below his level. He operates at the governmental level. So I wanted to bring that up at the outset because we're dealing with a reptilian overlordship. In the recent past, some people have dipped their toe into Stone Hobbit. I see you. Can't hide from me. In the recent past, some people have dipped their toe into the dark, murky waters of reptilians, and I'm fine with that. I'm not one of these people that, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, I've been saying this stuff for 20 years and no one's been listening to me. To me, that smacks of sour grapes. As far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier. However, it's not enough to acknowledge the fact that reptilians are here and are walking amongst us. It's what are they doing to us? How are they affecting us on a individual and on a societal, indeed a civilizational level, if that's a word? And that brings us to the subject of the reptilian overlordship. Okay, so I wanted to say that at the outset, and I'm going to get to your questions. You folks have come up with some great questions since I announced that we're going to be having this live stream. Also, I've been heavily shadow banned. I hate to say this because how often do we hear people say, well, I'm being shadow banned and please click like and subscribe and pass it on to get as many views as possible. Well, I come hat in hand to you because the same thing has happened to me. For a long time, me and my webmaster, the venerable Wolfhawk, is what I call him. He's one of us. He's a MyLab. He's had alien abduction experiences. He brought to my attention just how badly we're being shadow banned, how our podcast on YouTube is not showing up as suggestions to other people's channels, and the disparity between how many views we get, and people will take our podcast, put them on their channels, and they get gobs of views. And this is even happening in Rumble, BitChute, and some of the other platforms we're on. So please click like, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and please forward the podcast to other people on your social media platforms and on your private email list. That'll definitely help the algorithms push the views up. And also to that end, we're going to add 2 more channels, one for basically paranormal, UFO, cryptid, issues, the other for more geopolitical surface level issues, so people can have their choice of what they want to watch or listen to. Another quick point, and then we'll dive right into it. And it's just so great seeing all of you here. It's very humbling to know that there's a legion of people out there that have similar interest as myself and have had similar experiences as myself. It's very humbling indeed. Oh, yes, definitely. We'll put out an announcement for the new channels. I'd like to talk a bit about the abortive documentary for the REF Bentwaters Rendlesham Forest series of events. There was subterfuge and sabotage from within, surprise, surprised, and the whole documentary, Capel Green, is dead in the water. And a number of the key players have pulled out. They've made their wishes known in formally to the director that we're pulling out. I'm going to do the same because I've got a lengthy segment in there, which got like 10 seconds in the cinema screening. Ironically, I was talking about a government agent that was infiltrated into Larry Warren's life, and look what's happened to Capel Green now. There's definitely been subterfuge, subversion, and intrigue from within, and it's caused the whole project to be stillborn, 9 years in the making. There have been many other people in the interim that have put out not only one, but a series of documentaries in the meantime, and this director can't even get his act together long enough to put one single documentary out. On top of all that, he added all this weird extra stuff that has nothing to do with REF Bentwaters and the Rendlesham Forest incident. So in solidarity with Larry Warren and the other principal stakeholders in the Capel Green documentary, I myself am pulling out because this documentary is not what we signed up for. It's not going to show Larry Warren and the Rendlesham Forest series of events in the proper light. Okay, now I got that out of the way. I thought I'd do these live streams, and I'll start doing them every fortnight, every 2 weeks from here on in. Hopefully that won't be too much saturation for you folks and get tired of seeing me. Familiarity breeds contempt, as Mark Twain said. But because so much is going on, we have this yo-yo disclosure effort going this way, that way, and sideways. Now, unfortunately, from what I understand, there are whistleblowers and potential whistleblowers that have not only been harassed and threatened, but some have actually been bumped off. This on top of all of the people apparently in the know or have some understanding of the gravity and the seriousness of the situation. Many people that have been involved in it at some level, they've started to disappear. They've started to get bumped off. It's a pattern. We saw this in the past in our field. The UFO field has been a great many people over the years. I had a discussion with G.C. Shellhorn, the late G.C. Shellhorn, years ago about me wanting to write a book about all the researchers that have been bumped off over the years or have died untimely deaths. And he encouraged me to do so. I never did. To his credit, G.C. Shellhorn wrote a book, and then he died mysteriously. Okay? So it's a very serious subject. And this is what the people that are just coming to grips with the reality of this subject need to understand. There has been a level of oversaturation in the mainstream media about UFOs. They've managed to conflate the issue of UFOs with drones. Everything is a drone nowadays, even though they're hovering and loitering and zigzagging all over sensitive military installations and what have you. They're still routinely dismissed as drones. So they're not drones. Some of them may be, but the acrobatics, the capabilities they're exhibiting militate against them being drones. That's just another throwaway word similar to swamp gas or weather balloons, what have you. Oh, a quick point. We're going to push on till about the top of the hour and then a short break. And then for our members, we're going to have a special Zoom meeting and we can really let our hair down on what little I've got left. And I definitely like to hear from some of our members, see what they've got to say, and what have you. And yes, in other news radio, hello, Phil Schneider said bad aliens remove 7/8 of the population by 2029, and definitely trust and obey. They want to control the narrative. The truth will inevitably prevail. And that's another thing, and it ties in part and parcel with the reptilian overlordship. What they've managed to do also, because they want to cover as many segments of society, as many of the demographic slices of the pie, if you will. They have the new age covered. They've had that covered for some time. And they've had the fundies, the fundamentalist biblical types who take a literal interpretation of the Bible, and they've got them covered too, because you'll notice in the recent past, even J.D. Vance, the presumptive vice president of the United States, has been blowing smoke about, oh, they're all just demons, right? And a colleague of mine was bringing this subject up, and I'll get to your questions in a second, and anything else that comes up in the news feed, my webmaster and I will keep an eye on them, on the comments, keep everything flowing. But by describing this phenomena as merely demonic in nature, like I've said many times before, it sidesteps the issue of the hardware recovered, the alien bodies recovered, the technology that's been seeded into our society at so many different levels, and it's being used against us. So one of the problems I have with the ones waving the banner of the Galactic Federation, et cetera, and all the spin-offs we're getting from that. I'm going to have Nathan Sizek on the show. We're going to talk about this very subject. Is suddenly, from the New Age perspective, they're pushing the Galactic Federation, and we're going to get like med beds out of it. We're going to get stargates out of it, and my counter to that is, since when have they used this technology to our benefit? They've suppressed knowledge of it. They've killed off people who had no interest in UFOs or aliens, but they're developing free energy technology. They're developing engines that run on water, and et cetera. They've been systematically bumped off by the petrochemical industry in conjunction with the deep black spook world. So this notion that somehow, some way, at the end of the rainbow, we're all going to be equipped with our own med beds, when they've been depopulating us all this time. In the recent past, we've seen the rollout of all these so-called treatments, right? And when you look at the ingredients of the treatments, the nanotech, super small, the graphene, that's a head scratcher. How the heck do they make that and then roll it out in mass? So countless people today have literally what I perceive to be an alien operating system inside them. So when these people say, oh yeah, we're going to get a med bed out of it when the Galactic Federation comes and cleans house here, on the one hand, that's like a form of like galactic cosmic welfare, where we're too hopeless to do this on our own. We need help because we're helpless without it, right? Which is another way of saying that we're less than, we're unworthy, we're hopeless basket cases, right? And then on the other hand, well, we're supposed to be getting all this alien technology that benefits us, but I don't see that happening. What I see is that alien technology that's been seeded through the industries has been used against us, setting up this huge AI technocratic grid that Zbigniew Brzezinski talked about so long ago. On the one hand, you have the nanotech floating around in people's bloodstreams. On the other hand, they're setting up these huge data centers all over the place. So the point that one of our colleagues made on the comment stream a moment ago, that this is definitely a depopulation agenda and the aliens are behind it, is absolutely correct. And that cycles me back around to the original point, that this is a non-human agenda that's behind this. And we have to look at it from that perspective. And yes, disclosure will never come from the government. It's crazy. People think they can rely on the government. Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out. So, without any further ado, I want to talk about some of the issues that have been brought up, some of the questions that my extremely knowledgeable uh, colleagues, I don't call you my followers, I don't call you my fans, you're my colleagues. And some of my colleagues have brought up on, oh, I see the phoenix has risen. Hi, Susan. One of the things that were brought up to me was, make sure you talk about the nocturnal attacks that a lot of us have been uh, experiencing, undergoing in the recent past. There has got to be some kind of intensification of this whole nocturnal harassment agenda, because I went through it again about 3 weeks ago, right? I was laying on the sofa, not even in my bed, and these entities, unseen, but their presence was very strong. I could feel them, very malevolent. They started messing with me even before I'd fallen asleep. That's happened to me in the past, where they don't even bother trying to pull you out of your body astrally, or they don't even, I mean, they don't even wait for you to fall asleep before they try to abduct you astrally. Well, that happened the other day, not the other day, a few weeks ago by now, where I was laying on my sofa and suddenly I was under a lot of spiritual attack. Okay. And I prayed it away. The entities left me alone. But one of my colleagues, Kirsty, I don't know if she's on here. It's pretty late in the UK where she's at, but she mentioned she'd been going through a lot of nocturnal interference in the recent past. Now, sometimes I think what these entities do is they closely monitor our private lives. So if a lot of us are preoccupied with family issues, with financial issues, work issues, health issues, whatever the case may be, the moment they see our like health quotient, for lack of a better term, dip just below like where it should be, and kind of puts us in the frequency bandwidth of them, right? These negative, marauding, unseen entities for the most part. I think that's when they're going to strike. And sometimes that may not be the case. Sometimes we may have everything going for us in our life. Everything's hunky dory, clear sailing. And also, as many of you know, I've learned a long time ago that not to become too smug when things are going really well, right? And I don't say that in a glass half full way. I say that from experience, where I know that in the past, when things were kind of hunky dory and things were going my way, suddenly something, someone, or some entity comes along to kind of pull the rug out from under me, so to speak. So, as much as possible, I try to keep an even keel. So, my friend Kirsty brought this up, these nocturnal events, and I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about that too. And another colleague of mine, Marcus, brought up, okay, when we're having these nocturnal events or supernatural, for lack of a better term, interference in the present time, what can we do about it? And he made a very good point that sometimes for some people, praying to Jesus or praying to one's higher self, or calling on some kind of higher source for protection doesn't always work, right? And that's true. And he suggested, is it possible that there's energetic hooks, some kind of AI overlay, some kind of entity attachment, something latching onto our auric fields, whatever, that's preventing us from getting the protection that we need when we're under attack? And I would say that definitely that's the case. It goes back to the seeding of all this alien technology into our civilization, right? With the AI, the nanotech, et cetera, et cetera. There are probably things not only in our physical bodies, or for some of us at least, but also in our energy bodies, our various energy bodies, and our auric field, which some kind of shunt or block, for lack of a better term, which prevents us from connecting with divine source. Call it what one will, God, guidance of the divine. That's what I call it. Right? I don't picture God as old guy with a long white beard and holding a staff. Okay, that's not my understanding of God. Guidance of the divine is what I prefer. Something sometimes prevents us from getting that protection. Okay. Now, what I've done in the past is, and I still do, there's nothing wrong with using tools to help us to do the heavy lifting, as it were. Like I've got a orgone generator plugged in. It's not just an inert piece of orgone. It's a plug-in device. You get it from Orgone, OrgoneExpress.com. I think it's an Australian outfit, but I swear by these things. On one occasion, I came home and I felt just this wave of putrid, smoggy, foul energy, for lack of a better term. And I knew what had gone on. The plug, the orgone harmonizer plug, was unplugged. So I went straight to the room where the orgone harmonizer was. It was laying on the floor. I plugged it in, and immediately the energy became a lot better. Okay. So that's one thing, is the tools that we can use to do some of the heavy lifting for us. So my friend and colleague, Eric Burkholder, some of you probably watches and listen to his podcast. He made this for me. He gifted it to me at the conference last July. Geez, it's been almost a year now. The Full Disclosure Now conference. And I keep this by me. And here's another tool. This is another orgone device. What it does is it squelches, essentially, and reduces all the toxic radiation emissions from our digital devices, 5G, what have you. And I keep also a pendant of that, right? So point being is that there are things we can do to do unconsciously where we don't even have to think about it anymore. Some of the heavy lifting, because this is a frequency war, which I've said many times, right? These entities strive to keep us in a frequency bandwidth that is amenable and exploitable by them. And that's why they mess with our emotions, our feelings. They surround us at times with toxic, entity infested people to keep us at a low vibratory ebb, because that's their happy hunting ground, right? Our job, and at least one of them, is to maintain an even keel, rise above that energetically and emotionally. So the energy tools, the power tools, and also what I've learned too, one of the things that I've done in the past, which has worked for me, is when I'm paralyzed and entity's messing with me, paralyzed at a point where I can't even open my eyes, I can't even move a muscle, I just start blessing it, right? Bless you, bless you, bless you, thinking at first, because I can't open my mouth. And as I do so, I visualize emitting from my heart center this rose colored pinkish energy, which when I visualize it encompasses the whole planet. Okay. And so I'm saying, bless you, bless you. And I really mean it. I really want that entity that's messing me with me, or entities, to get off that treadmill and continue its spiritual journey, instead of being locked into this role that it probably has found itself in since time immemorial, right? So I bless it, I bless it. And as the paralysis starts to break, now I can move my lips, I can talk, and I begin saying it out loud. Bless you, pushing out that rose colored, heart centered energy. And then the paralysis backs off even more. Now I'm able to move my body, I'm able to get out of bed, get up, switch the light on. Bless you, bless you, bless you, making the thing back off. And then once it backs off, well, then I can kind of get myself on an even keel, get a drink of water, whatever the case may be. So I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you what techniques you've developed over time, trial and error being what it is, to help you get over these nocturnal intrusions, because I think as time goes on, and I don't want to belabor this point because we got a lot of other stuff to cover, but because of the introduction of 5G, okay, I've had for some time now an option when I go online for 3G or 5G. I always take 3G, and even when I've been forced to use 5G, it sucks. So there's propaganda about how it makes everything faster. No, that's just nonsense, right? So with the advent and introduction of all these highly uh, malignant type of energies in our grid system, this will allow, I think, more of these entities to come into play. I don't think I've ever known a time since I've been in this field when there have been more entity infested, entity possessed people. It's not just NPCs. I've never really liked the term NPC because it suggests that they're kind of on the sidelines, kind of like non-participating. Oh, it's quite the contrary. They are participating big time. If you're surrounded by NPCs and they're gaslighting you, or they're just, killing you with their normie muggleness, right, without even realizing it, that's that's a form of manipulation, because these entities will work through people. And I'll get to one of the subjects that one of our colleagues mentioned earlier about the possibility that some of these entities jump from one person to another. I think there was a movie about that very subject. I don't know if Denzel Washington was in it or somebody, but I would say that within a certain demographic groups of people, there are familiar entities, familiar root from family, generational, multi-generational. There is something to be said from the, I know the biblical standpoint mentions this, but there's something to be said but about having to endure curses due to the sins of our ancestors. That some of the things they've done way back then, whether it's cannibalism, ritual sacrifice, ritual murder, whatever the case may be, right? Or just meeting out atrocities to people in wars, what have you, that somehow that catches up to us. It's part of this kind of, fine print that we're not really allowed to see when we come into incarnational embodiment, that we got to drag all this luggage with us, not only from our prior incarnations, but from what our ancestors did, right? So I think that now more than ever, we're seeing certain large swaths of the population, certain demographics are really, really entity infested. And I made the observation several weeks back, before we even came up with the idea of doing this live stream, that it just seems to me that it's the same entity or the same types of entities that are inhabiting all these different people, right? So keep that point in mind. Sue Pulvetico, I've had on the show a number of times, absolutely brilliant gal, Croatian. Something about the water in Croatia, how they managed to be so psychic, right? And she says with her etheric third eye vision, when she looks at power transformers, power lines, etc., she sees these black, like blobby things flying around and zipping in and out around the transformers. And I intuitively guessed that the emissions that are being pumped out by the grid are either attracting these things or opening conduits in the fabric of space-time that's letting more and more of these entities in. So, just to wrap up that aspect of it, I don't think that there's ever been a time in our recorded history that there's been so many people that have been taken up as host, have so many attached entities. So let me go look at some of the questions that people asked, and I'll try to read them verbatim. Oh, this is my colleague Jess. I would really appreciate if you spoke about how to protect our children from being abducted and influenced, how to prevent ongoing malicious attacks targeted at destroying the parent-child bond that begins in the womb and escalates as the child is individuating. Another brilliant insight. from a dear friend of mine who she came by my way a couple of months back. She's doing her travels here, there, and everywhere, and she happened to pass through my part of Australia, and we had a really good time hanging out. Well, back to her question: how do we protect our children? Like, for example, with my son, on his windowsill, I have. I talked about power tools earlier. I have actual iron horseshoes. Steve Mira was on my show one time, and he pointed out that there is a deliberate effort at limiting the amount of iron or iron ore that's available. Wait a minute. I have iron ore. I don't have horseshoes. A friend of mine uses horseshoes because that's all she can get. But I have actual iron ore from a mine, right? And if you go back to medieval times, one of the things that parents did to thwart the Fae, the fairies, the wee folk. They had different names for them in the Celtic, Scandinavian countries, especially. One of the things they did to thwart their children in cots being abducted, right, is by putting horseshoes, iron horseshoes, in the cots with them. Well, I've got actual iron ore. Point of relevance is I put it there as a power tool to add that much level of protection to my son when he's sleeping, right? And a lot of us that are parents that have had these experiences, we've gone through periods where even when our children were so young they were nonverbal, that they endure some kind of fright at night. And this infuriates me when I think about it, right? Bad enough they mess with us, but when they mess with our kids, and where the kid is beside themselves as a toddler, nonverbal. They can cry, they can scream, they can giggle, they can laugh, they can make some sounds, daddy, gaga, whatever, right? But they're not really verbal yet. And some kind of fright kicks in at night, and they're just hysterical for an hour or more. As a parent, especially a parent who knows about this stuff, that can be quite infuriating. Hence the decision to put the iron ore there and what have you. Now, as far as teaching them when they grow up, now, as parents, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have gone through this, and especially knowing the kind of world we're in, the nature of it, the multiple threat environment, we do things subconsciously even where we don't allow them to lag behind us when we're walking out in public. We don't allow them to like duck behind a corner because we always want the line of sight on them, and we make a pretense, I do, of being very alert to my surroundings. Predators look for parents or guardians who are preoccupied, disengaged, not aware of the nature of the multiple threat environment in which they're in. Okay. You can see from some of these CCTV videos where a mother with 3 kids on a street corner, and then a car just pulls up, and then someone gets out of the passenger seat, grabs a little girl, throws her into the car, and they drive away. And that's it. Okay, game over at that point, right? So, at the very basic level, we make sure that when we're out in public with them, we're just mindful of our surroundings. Like, for example, I always remind my wife and my son uh, when we're taking a train somewhere, don't stand near the edge of the train platform because some entity infested whack job will come along and push them, into the path of an oncoming train. How many times have we seen that? Okay. So that's just basic situational awareness when we're out and about. Now, as far as raising these issues, okay, parents with young kids, um, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade, etc., going on up, we're dealing with issues that our parents didn't have to deal with. We have digital devices, and we know this black screen scrying device, right? And a lot of our colleagues that have the etheric third eye vision, and I have no reason to doubt them, they've said they've seen like weird sculler, like mechanical spider thingies and octopus being thingies coming out of the monitors, dancing around on the computer keyboards, and I have no reason to doubt any of that, because again, it goes back to the frequencies that the powers that be, Apple, IBM, all of them use. They can just as easily use frequencies that enhance us, give us vitality, make us feel good, but no, not on this planet. That makes us too powerful, too uncontrollable. So what they do is they just hammer us with these negative frequencies that facilitate the intrusions and manipulation of all these entities also. So how do you bring these subjects up? Well, first thing is the basics again. Limit the screen time of the kids and be very mindful of what they watch, because these controllers are so insidious and so evil, right? When we were kids, you know, we had slow motion kind of video games, and just like a light bouncing back and forth, playing tennis, ping pong, or whatever. And then later on, woo, they had arcades with Space Invaders. We're really moving up in the world now because of the seeding of all this alien technology, and because of the ability of these companies like that make Roblox and other games. A lot of those companies, those tech companies, are run by entity infested pedophiles. So in the old days, and it still pertains to this day, the pedos, the groomers, they go where the kids are. So they become a soccer coach, a little league coach. In my high school, the band teacher turned out to be a pedo, right? I always thought there was something wrong with that guy. But later on, it turned out he was messing with all these like young girls that were in his band class, right? So they go to where the prey is because they're predatory in nature, undeveloped frontal lobes, so there's no impulse control. Like I've said before, they have, for lack of a better term, plugins or receptors that allow these negative entities to plug right into the consciousness, right? And their neurology is not the same as ours. So it's more reptilian in orientation. So it's quite natural that when they come up with these video games, Roblox and all the rest, that they're going to make it so they can attract all these kids and manipulate them, groom them, try to meet them. So as once again, as parents, we got to be mindful of that. No, you're not going to use Roblox, and you're certainly not going to go online, interact with the other users, and we're going to limit your screen time anyway. And also what they watch on TV. Like there was this, some of them are so full of woke satanic memes. I've talked about this before, but the next Minions movie that's coming out in July, I saw the trailers for it when I was at the theater last time. The Minions are actually conducting satanic ceremonies with pentagrams, and they're summoning forth demons, right? Literally, right? I mean, I wouldn't say as jaded and cynical as I am, but when I saw that, I damn near fell out of my seat. Okay, so point of relevance is it's a multiple threat environment, and they're after our kids, so we have to do everything possible. And again, I'm absolutely open to any other suggestions that you folks have, but those are just the basics. Now, as far as bringing them up to speed with the alien abduction, supernatural, nocturnal intrusions aspect, there are ways, and it varies from family to family, parent to parent. I like to use a lot of euphemisms and what have you, and so I don't come out and say aliens, or I don't come out and say, Dracos or whatever, but I talk about it in terms of dreams. Okay, you had a bad dream last night. Tell us what it was about, right? And so that gives my wife and I some information to work with. So, and I don't even really know if I answered the question, because it's so pervasive and insidious that we just have to be on our guard all the time. I'm probably more, you would call me a helicopter parent. And friends of mine have accused me of being a helicopter parent. My son would be, playing in a playground somewhere, and I'm right there, man. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not, sipping a coffee. I'm present, right? because I know the nature of this multiple threat environment is. Um, Let me see what else we have here as far as some of the questions are concerned. And I'm looking at a secret chat where I've got all these questions lined up, and I'll go back into the comments to see what some of you folks have got to say about all this. Uh, okay, here's one. Alien level MK with lack of boundary issues to destroy psychology, emotion, internal regulation of abductees, simulating dementia, head trauma, manipulation of witnesses with illogical, incorrect tape recorder responses. I think all of that comes under the category of what my mentor, Barbara Bartley, talked about. And I can't stress this enough. The breeding out the love program, which she talked about endlessly when she was alive, that they're doing something with multiple generations now of kids to make them heartless, dispassionate, completely lacking in empathy, violent, sadistic, cruel, and boy howdy are we seeing that. So that is the fundamental basis of what's going on. There's been multiple generations now that have been subjected to this breeding out the love program, and that could be done just by genetic engineering, tampering with the neurology, tampering with, and it goes into like metaphysical issues as well. You know, our metaphysical heart center and our solar plexus, shutting it down, what have you, right? So what it is it's created a large group of people now in our society that are just simply lacking in some of the basic ingredients that make us human beings: empathy, love, compassion. There could be a guy flopping around on the ground with a heart attack or something, or a seizure, and people just standing around videotaping the guy, right? No effort at helping. Oh, look, that person's drowning. No effort to jump in and pull the guy out. And everything is all about clicks and likes and views, and the dopamine hits that go along with that. So we see this clear disconnect between what people used to be like, and all this is being done to prepare people eventually for not only a depopulation, but also for setting up a future world controlled by aliens. Well, it's controlled by aliens now, but where the hybrid issue kicks in, where throughout society for a long time now, these human looking alien hybrids have been seeded into our civilization, our society, and they don't have a human consciousness. I've even seen a video of a policeman who was, and this guy looked like a vampire. It was broad daylight, and he had a really pale complexion. I was going, gee, this guy looks odd. And he's watching these kids in a lot in between buildings, uh, riding their bikes and skateboarding. And the the cop, who I think was an alien hybrid of some kind, or an alien, completely alien, he watched it and he got a grim expression on his face, like he just suddenly went in the rage mode. And then he just attacked one of the kids, attacked them, and tased them too. And all the kid was doing was playing and having a good time. And see, that's another thing about these malevolent entities. They despise us for who we are. They despise us for being joyful and having happiness, and they don't like any of that because it's an energy and a frequency that's 180 degrees opposite of the energy they're emitting. So good vibes, good feelings, love, compassion, that's like anathema to them. They don't want that. They want to lock us into that frequency bandwidth of theirs and then mess with our neurology to the point, multi-generationally, through genetics, and increasingly for some time now, these institutions teaching cultural Marxism, teaching uh, critical race theory, et cetera, just generating the hate and the rage within huge swaths of the population, to the point where, you know, you point out, oh, look, this slaughter is happening, that genocide is happening. Who cares? They don't care, because they're lacking in those basic ingredients emotionally, psychologically, neurologically, that make us human, right? So I don't know if I answered the question. I don't have all the answers, folks. I'm just like all of you. I'm going. doing the best I can. Now, let me just go. I'll make one quick point about the Draco and their allies. The Draco and the Reptilians, and when I mean the Reptilians, I'm talking about the negative ones. I'm not talking about the ones that are benign, neutral, or don't care about us and just leave us alone, basically. And there are some that have actually been allies to us at some level that have tried to help us. I'm not talking about them. A lot of people get all bent out of shape. Well, you're talking about the Reptilians, the ones I interact with are so friendly. Well, yeah, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones that are keeping us in this cosmic zoo, so to speak. There is a hierarchy at work, and I may be wrong about this, but I've had discussions with others. We have the Draco, the white Draco, right? They seem to be like way high up there in their caste system, and I do believe this caste system came from these aliens, from these reptilians and Draco. And then beneath the Draco, you have the reptilians and all the different allies that they have, mantis beings, factions of the Greys, what have you, and other aliens that we don't have an inkling about, right? A lot of us have had these readings from really good psychics about ET guides and ET allies. And then often as not, certainly in my case, I'm expecting a certain type of alien to show up, but oftentimes some ET shows up. I didn't even know their species existed, right? So it's a mixed bag. But these Draco and Reptilians, and I emphasize this and I re-emphasize this, they've given us, as Carlos Castaneda said, they've given us their minds. They've given us their attitudes, their behaviors, their institutions. They've manipulated our neurology. And also, if you'll notice, in academia, in Hollywood, in mass media, everything is done to put us in rage mode. And I've been guilty of this too. I see a video and like steam starts coming out of my nose and ears because I'm just so against injustice and bullying of any kind, right? It's kind of one of my Achilles heels, if you will, right? But they've given us all these institutions. In general, the Muggles population, I hate to sound so judgmental, but sometimes I can't help but thinking of them as Muggles. They take this on board subconsciously. They're not even aware that they're behaving in this prescribed fashion, that they're supposed to be dispassionate. They're supposed to have not a human connection with other people, right? So it's important that we always maintain our loving kindness and our connection to divine source, because we cannot assume that some friendly beings are going to come and pull our chestnuts out of the fire, as it were, right? That's an assumption. We have to work and operate as if we got no one but ourselves to depend on. That much being said, I do know for a fact that many of us here are boots on the ground. We are part of an extended ET family, and we voluntarily decided to come here in the earthly plane and go through the rinse repeat cycles of reincarnation because we needed to be here at this time doing the work that we're doing. Okay, let me dive into some of the comments. Do you think there could be a connection between the shadow people and reptilians? Michael, thank you for that. That's a good question, actually. There does seem to be some overlap, and this ties into are they demons or are they aliens? And of course, the fundy types are really pushing the demonic aspect. But Tom Montauk pointed out, a friend of mine had pointed this out to me, that at some level, they kind of coalesce, right? There's a book that I read. It's kind of hard to find, but it's a classic book. It's called The Return of the Old Gods, something like that. I have to look it up. But they pointed out that in all likelihood, what we're experiencing here on Earth with the supernatural attacks, the nocturnal intrusions, the alien abductions, etc., it's probably not unique to our planet, that there are probably many other worlds in our cosmos and throughout the multiverse where the people on those worlds are getting messed with in a similar fashion. So that's an interesting concept. Aliens getting on another planet, from our perspective, they would be aliens, but aliens and their home planets being messed with by demons, right? So getting back to the thing about the shadow people and reptilians, those of you that have listened to Jerry Marzinski, absolutely brilliant guy, 30 years in the psychology field, working in major institutional correction prisons, basically. And yes, because Barbara Bartholick, and I confirmed this independently in my own research, there's definitely a crystal meth crank connection. Certain drugs, and even including certain pharmaceuticals, plug us into that frequency bandwidth I referred to earlier, which makes it easier, facilitates these intrusions and harassment, let's say, from these non-human uh, life forms, right? Corporeal or non-corporeal. And these shadow beings seem to be part of that mix, where the shadow beings would speak through the host and tell Jerry, you have no right to interfere with our way of life, right? This is what we do, basically. Take people up as hosts and then make them wreak chaos and mayhem through society, because that's what we do, right? That's their way of life. And also the fact that some entities may be possessed. I work with a bunch of Germans, and I told the story many times, but through these Skype sessions, we would do clearing and energy work with one another. But every once in a while, like a reptilian or a dragon would pop up and would ask us to remove these snake entities that had been embedded into their solar plexuses, right? And free them, as it were. And we would pull our resources together energetically and then yank these snake entities out of these reptilians, and they went away happy, right? So it just shows that this hosting entity attachment issue, it's I don't want to say universal, but it seems to happen more than just human beings. It's happening to a bunch of beings. So there's this hosting phenomena that's going on with other entities also. So I think that the shadow beings are part of that mix. They're part of that in some nether dimension where they see us as food, essentially, in a parasitic, loose generating sense. And because of their hatred of mankind, they and other similar entities, demons, call them what one will, latches onto a human host and uses that human host as a medium through which to wreak mayhem and havoc on society. When you read some of the accounts of these tweakers, these meth heads, just the horrific stuff they get up to, I don't even want to go there. But let's see, what else have we got? Only got several more minutes. Sorry, I've been yakking all this time. Oh, the blue cube overlay. Thank you, Under Fire 987. That's something that's come up in the recent past with discussions also, because if you look at the blue cube, black cube, did I say blue cube? Black cube. We know about the Saturn moon connection. That's why to a lot of us, I don't want to say jaded, cynical, but like the Atlas 3IA was a Rorschach test. It was a blotter. It's like people read into it all these different things, right? Which when you zoom out and you look at the greater scheme of things, the cosmic scheme of things, the moon is a bloody alien base. So I'm not going to get too worked up over Atlas 3IA, but that's just me, right? So if you look at the Saturn moon matrix and the fact that it's generating these discordant frequencies amplified and redirected by the sun, rather the moon, at us, right? And then when you look at how the black cube plays such a critical role in some of these religions, Islam, for example, right? And then you look at like the Kabbalah and you look at other magical disciplines. Well, the black cube plays a key role in that. Jordan Maxwell, my old pal, the late great, he talked about how the black cube has been insinuated at so many levels in our society. You look at the square cap that the graduates in high school and college, when they get their degree, right, the Masonic degree, in their hand of their degree, they're wearing these square kind of Saturn cube thingies on their head, right? Nobody thinks that's unusual, but Jordan pointed it out. But it just goes to show the whole point is to plug us into that frequency bandwidth. And when you look at some of the things that have happened in Mecca, right, where you have these stampedes, hundreds, if not thousands of people killed during the pilgrimages there, the Hajj, as they call it, that's going to feed that black cube big time. And there is a return of the old gods aspect to this. And we've talked about this before. H.P. Lovecraft opening these huge dimensional portals, what have you. I think that's part of the agenda because the fundamental constants of physics are changing. All kinds of energy streaming in from the galactic core, not only in our galaxy, but in every galaxy in our plane of existence. So that's a game changer. And it seems to me in our world, these controlling parasitic negative entities, they're very aware of this cosmic timetable. Our planet, I've said this many times, at the risk of sounding redundant, our planet and our entire solar system is subject to celestially driven cataclysms. These built-in resets that happen every 9 to 12,000 years thereabouts, which in geological time, that's a nanosecond. Okay, and we're right on the cusp again. The huge volcano blowing its top in the Philippines as we speak. The ring of fire is being activated. Seismic activity all over the place. So the powers that be know that uniformitarianism is nonsense. That our planet is subject to at times tremendous upheavals, geologically, cosmically, what have you. So we're right there on the cusp. And wouldn't it make sense now more than ever for these cultists, Satanists, reptilian hybrids, reptilian shapeshifters using not only traditional ceremonial magic to open up portals and let more of the old ones in, but now they're using technology, right? We know about CERN. Now think about that. Gigantic counter-rotating magnets, right? And they're openly talking about using it to open portals and let beings in. And they're even doing rituals outside of their facility. Candace Owens showed this video of these. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's horrifying. But it looked as if these Satanists were having this ceremony outside of CERN in front of this statue of Kali or something. I can't remember. And then they perpetrated a sacrifice, right? So it underscores the nature where it's not mysticism on the one hand and technology on the other, because throughout the ages, there's always been this conjunction between high technology and magic, for lack of a better term. NASA has kind of hinted at this over the years with their iconography, how Orion keeps showing up in a lot of their iconography, a lot of their motifs, et cetera, and that delves into the whole Egyptian cosmology, pantheon of their gods, what have you. And let me see what we've got. The time we got remaining, and I apologize for the lack of time. Any reptilian being positive in the agenda, don't believe that for a second. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of reptilians that are malevolent, but then there seems to have been some reptilians that have helped people. I knew a gal named Alicia, Alicia Davidson. She was getting messed with a lot by the military, and after a while, this big reptilian sentry, for lack of a better term, popped up in her house and just kind of did sentry duty, walking back and forth in her living room to seemingly protect her from the military. Well, was that a con? Was it really working for the military? We don't know, right? But for Alicia, it seemed to do the trick because the military weren't coming around as often when that reptilian was there. And there are factions of reptilians where in the reptilian hierarchy, reptilian scheme of things, there are some reptilians that don't go along with the agenda and have actually tried to help specific abductees at great risk. And when they were found out by the rest of the reptilians, they were punished accordingly, right? So again, I emphasize and talk about negative reptilians because this is a reptilian sphere of influence. We're under the reptilian overlordship is what I say a lot. Okay. they're turning everyone into a pod person, Glide 789. Well, yes, and that goes back to the breeding out the love program, but also a pod person from the standpoint where there's just an emptiness there, a vacuousness, almost uh, like an empty vessel, subject to any kind of whims, any kind of intrusive thoughts. And one thing that Jerry Marzinski talked about was, and I believe this implicitly, that a lot of our thoughts, we have to monitor our thoughts because these non-corporeal entities, they speak to us in our own thought voice, if that makes sense, right? So, and I imagine it's the same in every language, and even in slang, with Cockney English, and uh, the entities talk to them in their own Cockney English slang voice. Because if another sounding voice came into our heads, we go, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. So they speak in our thought voice. And you look at all these people in our society that are empty vessels. And when they're empty, that means that these entities have that much more of an opportunity to use them as a host. It goes back to that question earlier about, do some of these people, are they hosted either permanently or momentarily by the same kind of entities that other people are? Or is it possible that one entity will jump into one person and another person, another person? And I think there might be something to that, because all it takes is for an entity to pop into somebody at an unguarded moment, speak through that entity, or rather person, and give a very purposeful gaslighting message to the individual. In our example, targeted individuals go through this all the time, where they're just trying to live day to day, and then all these people just start saying weird things to them, because either through tweaking knobs, through some kind of technological means, or some entity, because they work hand in hand. There are people that insist that this is only aliens, this is only humans. I think it's both by this point, that those people tweaking the knobs and electromagnetically beaming us when they should be leaving us alone, I think some of those people are entity infested. Why wouldn't they be? Who in their right mind, underlined right mind 3 times, would do this to another person? Again, lacking the basic ingredients of humanity, empathy, compassion, what have you. You remove that from the equation, and what you have left is this uh, predatory, manipulative, insidious consciousness, right? Working through technology, what have you. So I do believe they're turning a lot of people into pod people, especially in the wake of the rollouts of the treatments, let's say, right? I think that more and more people, those who haven't succumbed to the treatments, I think a great many of them, and others have observed this as well, that a lot of them have been turned into pod people, for lack of a better term. Well, we've reached the end of our segment. I apologize for the brevity of this. I have to meet our members after this, and then I have to interview Nathan Sizek in a couple hours. He's going to give an earful about his thoughts about the UFO community and the where it's veering off to, let's say. And I would agree with Nathan, to a point, that there is something to be said about this whole kind of Pollyanna mentality that is pervasive in our UFO community, in our research community. Because even if there was, let's say, for sake of an argument, a Stargate in Iran, right? Is it really worth going to war for that? And again, if there was a Stargate in Iran and the powers that be grabbed a hold of it as a result of a ground invasion, perish the thought, what's the likelihood of them turning around and say, oh, everyone on James, members section can take free rides to other worlds? It's not going to happen, right? So, and this is where I think a lot of people make a mistake. They look at the term as above, so below, but they only look at it in esoteric terms. One of the problems with people too steeped in the esoterica is it's very similar to what we see in academia. Certain courses, certain instructors, they can't deviate from the real discipline. Say if I'm like an engineer, I can't go off on flights of fancy about like DEI and about wokeism and all that, because if I teach these students the wrong information, they're going to go out and try to build a bridge that won't work, right? So reality intercedes. There are certain disciplines where you have to stay on topic. You can't deviate. Unlike the social sciences, humanities, they can stand up there on their soapbox and all this stuff, right? All this nonsense. Well, we see something similar with the esoteric in our field, where as above, so below. So they only look at the below from the esoteric and not the geopolitical, not what's going on in the surface world. As above, so below. In the Elizabethan scheme of things, they call it the great chain of being. And in a lot of the Shakespeare plays, we see this, where there's disruption in the heavens, thunder, lightning, unrest in the heavens, and then that reflects upon the unrest on earth. All these intrigues, Hamlet and Macbeth, all this stuff going on, but it's a reflection of what's going on in the heavens, the unrest, what's going on in the minds of the participants, right? And we see this also in the Chinese dynastic traditions, the mandate of heaven, where we can have a society, a kingdom run for centuries if they've got the mandate of heaven from the gods. But if the mandate of heaven is removed, then we have chaos, revolutions, wars, famine, you see? So that's all happening at the surface. If we just keep looking at things from an esoteric point of view, and then we miss all the stuff going on all around us. And I think that's what's going on with a lot of the UFO community, where they plug in some of these Pollyanna kind of concepts into real world geopolitical war issues, right? Like they're going to Iran for a Stargate, and then after they get the Stargate, we're going to all get med beds, right? So despite this ongoing depopulation effort and this ongoing effort to make all of us ill and sick and what have you, suddenly they're going to do a 180, right? And only because some of these researchers are saying that, or some of these podcasters, and I'm not buying that. It's not because I'm glass half empty. I'm perennially a glass half full kind of guy, right? But I'm grounded. I'm steeped in the reality show. By that, I mean, I'm not going to get caught up in all these flights of fancies and all the hopium. So anyhow, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm humbled that you would take your time from your busy lives. And I apologize for not getting into the all the questions. I'm looking at the comments. You guys are so switched on, all of you. Christine Anderson is a great point you made. I'll have to address that, because the whole rabies issue, the prions issue, right, with the treatments, how there's prions in them, basically giving people a form of mad cow disease, right? And that's a key part of all of this. So it's time to bid you adieu. I got to get ready for the next segment, but thank you so much, and we'll catch up again. And again, we're going to do this pretty regularly from now on, if you'll bear with me. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.